Hi, this is Michaela. In this lesson, we're going to learn Korean alphabets and they are called Hangul. Let me tell you that Korean alphabets are not very difficult to learn, so by the end of this video, you should be able to get most of them. And within half a day maximum, you should be able to read pretty much anything out there written in Korean or even write anything in Korean according to what it sounds like. So this should be your goal for watching this video. Hangul. Hangul is what we call our Korean alphabets. It's not Hangul, like in spelling written in English here, but it's Hangul, more like a goose sound of English word bagel or eagle. And in Korean, we write it like this. Now, what does this look like to you? Well, a lot of people find Korean letters very strange, but some say it looks very interesting. People say they look like some kind of ancient encryption or matrix letters, some secret code or pictures. Well, let me tell you what. Actually, Korean consonants, for example, are based on the shape of our tongue and the throat when we make a particular sound. They are pictures of those shapes, so that's why they look like pictures. And as for vowels, they are based on three elements: dot, horizontal line, and vertical line. We call them sky, earth, and man. And you might question how. Well, let's just say they're a very minimalistic version of sky, earth, and man. Anyway, we don't use the dot anymore. Instead, we use smaller strokes for those. And all the vowels are just lines put together in different ways to make letters and sound. And when it comes to lines, you'll see it everywhere in Korea. Koreans love curves, but they also love stripes. Although it's nothing to do with the Hangul, I just want to say that you will see a lot of them from now on in this video. Now, we're about to learn Korean alphabets, and first of all, let me make it very clear that this video is not for those people who want to learn Korean language professionally or academically. I am neither covering the history or philosophy of it, nor science behind it, nor following the usual way the Koreans learn their language. This is for foreign travelers or people who are just curious, or people who just want to learn the alphabets quickly so that they can apply them as soon as possible, that is to say, within a day. So your learning strategy and method here will be slightly different from the traditional way of studying, but don't worry, you will still cover all the alphabets. It's just that you will need to approach more strategically. First, you will need to understand your focus. That is to say, you need to know what to discard and what not to worry about for now and what to focus mainly. Second, you will need to understand how alphabets work together before jumping on to first alphabet. In that way, when you actually start learning individual alphabet, you can visualize where you are going and where this alphabet is going to be used. For example, Korean alphabets are like a blocks of letters put together to make a word, rather than arranging them in linear way like English alphabets. You can imagine it like making a puzzle or Lego, but if you put anything together without any order, it will be a complete mess and you won't be able to read or recognize what they are. That is why we have a simple rule that tells you what goes in here, what goes in here, and what goes in here. You need to know this rule first so that later you're not just memorizing all the alphabets like a machine and not knowing how to put them together to make a word. Then you go through individual alphabets and learn how to pronounce them or write them. It might be a bit dragging to go through all individual alphabets one by one, so I will try to group them together to quicken the process and make some easy words along the way so you know how to have fun with these blocks of letters. After that, you start practicing by, for example, writing your names, dog or cat names, or whatever in Korean, and pronouncing any Korean words around you, like Korean products in supermarkets nearby, or menus in Korean restaurants, etc. And all of this without any Korean's help. And that should be a good start for learning Korean language. So let's start. 1. Understanding your focus. Right, so let me tell you what not to worry about. First of all, You don't need to worry about all the things related to more sophisticated level of pronunciation or writing, such as starting from the top, variation in pronunciation. For English, you have a vowel A, and it will sound quite different depending on what comes next to it, such as so, pay, ka. And a lot of languages have their own accents in words, which you need to pronounce them correctly. Otherwise, they will not mean, they would mean completely different, or people will not be able to understand what you're talking about. Such as English word project or project. Now, if you're Chinese, you might also worry about tones. Like Chinese have different tones for the same sound, which would mean completely different from one another. If I take an example of Cantonese word si, you could say, I'm not an expert here. Si, is that right? Si, si, no, si, and si, something like that. And it all mean different. And when it comes to writing systems, some languages have two different ways of writing, which you need to learn both. In Korean, you don't need to worry about all of that, okay? In Korean, we never have a change in the sound of vowels, no matter what comes after or before it. Consonants, they mostly don't change. There are exceptions, however, but it's very easy to figure it out, and I'll tell you more about it in the next video. Generally, you don't need to worry about alphabet sounds changing, as there is only one way of pronouncing it. Next, we don't have an accent or tone. Have you ever heard Koreans speaking English in strong Korean accent? Rarely you can detect intonation or tones or accent. Well, my accent died down a lot now, and I still have them, but I used to speak like that too. The point is, in Korean, whether you say, let's take an example of Korean dish called bibimbap, whether you say bibimbap or bibimbap would not make any difference in meaning. Yes, we do sometimes accentuate to emphasize something, perhaps with a high-pitched voice or louder voice, something like that, but that's it. We don't have words that, we do have words that spelled exactly the same but mean different, but this is nothing to do with tone. We just don't have those rules, those sophisticated rules of accent and tones that other languages have. So you don't need to worry about that when it comes to communicating in Korean. Lastly, there's only one type of writing you only need to focus on. So your focus will be mainly accurately pronouncing individual alphabets and writing them correctly. That's all you need to focus on. And try not to analyze either for now. Put aside the connections between the alphabets or science, philosophy, or history behind the alphabets. I am Korean and I have a pride in Korean language, but for now, this is not your priority. If you have time, it's interesting, go ahead and have a read on the internet, but do this after learning all the sound and writing of individual alphabets. I remember when I first learned English alphabets, I tried to memorize the order of alphabets until dark circles comfortably settled around my eyes. I imagined and tried to analyze how A becomes B and whether D is a mirrored image of B, etc. As you can see, this is unnecessary if you just want to learn the alphabets and apply them as soon as possible. So the key here is treat the alphabets like pictures, and just visually get your eyes used to the shape of alphabets and use creativity to find a way to remember its respective sound. After you've done that, you can read pretty much anything out there. Of course, you may not be able to understand what they mean yet, but you can at least pronounce them without dictionary or any Korean's help, and you can even write anything in Korean according to what it sounds like. And it's a lot of achievement by just learning alphabets. So this should be your goal to achieve by the end of this video. 2. How Korean alphabets work together. This is one word written in Korean. What do they look like to you? And what shapes do you see? Well, it's how we write the name of this Korean dish. It's called bibimbap. And in English, we write it like this. As you can see, you write the alphabets in linear arrangement, mostly in order of consonant, then vowel, consonant, and vowel, etc. Well, Korean's alphabets go in that order too, but it's just that we don't put them in linear arrangement. We put them together neatly into a nice square box. Here's a nice square patchwork of 3 smaller squares inside. Well, 2 squares on top and then 1 rectangle at the bottom. This is usually the basic shape we use for writing a Korean word. And on this structure, we put Korean alphabets inside each one of these 3 boxes to make a word instead of putting them in linear way that you do with English alphabets. Sometimes though, what goes inside in this red box on the top looks very wide horizontally, like this. And it just doesn't look very nice as it disturbs overall nice square shape. So in that case, we don't mind arranging boxes vertically like this so that this horizontally wide shape can fit in nicely without disturbing overall shape of square. Some Koreans like to break it down to more smaller boxes inside the square, more than 3. But let's keep it simple. Let's just stick the 3 boxes inside one big square, either like this or this. Okay? Now, in Korean, we call this one syllable. One syllable is one unit that has one speech of sound, such as bi, bim, ba. They have a minimum 1 consonant and 1 vowel each, and sometimes additional consonant at the end to make a sound. In Korean, every syllable equals 1 square box. So how do we put the words inside? Let's take an example of this word bim. It's 1 syllable, and we don't put them in linear arrangement like in English. We put the alphabet something like this into the box, B-I-M, to make a sound bim. And as I said before, if we just put anything into the square box without any order, we won't be able to read or recognize anything. So here's a simple rule for you to remember. We always put the alphabets from left to right, top to bottom, okay? And as you can see from the order of English alphabets here, Koreans also write consonant first on the left side, then vowel on the right side. Then if there's further consonant, we put it underneath, not next to the vowel, underneath. So the last consonant of a syllable is always at the bottom. And 1 syllable equals 1 square box. And basically we put lots of these syllable square boxes next to each other to make a word or sentence. Understand? So next time, if you see this random Korean word which you don't really recognize, but then you can roughly figure out that this is consonant and this right one might be vowel and this one might be another consonant. So if you know how to pronounce individual consonant and vowels here, you can certainly read this word. And this is actually pronounced as ring, ling. And it's the way we write ring, as in wedding ring, or scary movie called Ring. Okay, we call it ling. Also, if you see this shape of random Korean words, even if you don't know what they mean, you can figure out that this is consonant, that is vowel. Well, you know vowel because vowels can be at the middle too if it's horizontally wide. Then consonant at the bottom. And after learning the pronunciation of all the Korean alphabets later, you should be able to figure out how to pronounce this without my help. It actually means bear, and I won't tell you how to pronounce it You tell me how to pronounce bear in Korean after this video. Now, of course, we don't write Latin-based alphabets like this. We have our own characters that represent each of these sounds. So I am going to show how we write BIM in Korean. And let me replace each of these alphabets into Korean alphabets. First, B. We don't say B, it's a B sound. So can you, it's B sound, yeah. Put together with the I vowel, so it's B. But essentially it's a B sound. And can you guess what shape would this B sound look like in Korean? Shape of this sound look like? Well, have a guess, see if it fits into your imagination. It looks nothing like English alphabet B, and it rather looks like this. It looks a bit like a bucket shape. Now, did it match what you have imagined just now? If it did, you are a genius. Let's try next one. It's written as English alphabet I. We don't pronounce it as I though, it's E. It's E sound here, obviously, and the E sound has a shape in Korean, and it looks very similar to I shape. Did that surprise you? And that's how you write the vowel E, right? So put together with bucket and the straight line becomes B, okay? Now next, we have one more consonant at the bottom. And can you imagine what kind of shape would M looks like in Korean? Some of you might have guessed by now if you have a sharp eyes. Well, it's a square. And this is how we write sound in Korean. So together with the B sound, with the E and all together it becomes BIM, okay? If you swap, say, a bottom square with bucket shape, then how would that make it sound? It should be spelled as M-I-B then, so meep. You get it? There's no variation in the way you pronounce it, and no matter what happens, this square will always have a sound, and the vertically long straight line will always have E sound, and this bucket shape will always have a B sound, okay? So that's why you can read any Korean once you know the sound of individual alphabets and the shape of that alphabet. So let's quickly finish the rest of our syllables in bibimbap. So you know what roughly B looks like. You don't need to learn how to write it yet. Just familiarize yourself with the shape of it like a picture. So I told you it looked like a bucket, so B for bucket. Does it look more familiar to you by now? If so, good. Next, E sound. You know what it looks like. E, long, vertical, straight line. It's actually man. You know, sky, earth, man, and this is the shape of man actually. So there you go. You've just written B in Korean. A bucket and a straight line. See, if there are any other words around you that has a sound B, just like a beagle. I'm saying sounds like B, not English spelling B. Well, you can write B now in Korean, so you only need to find out how to write goose. Then you can write beagle. Next, Bob. Now, you know what B looks like. B for bucket, then R sound. Now, you haven't learned what R looks like in Korean. So I'll tell you what R looks like. It actually looks very similar to Korean E vowel shape, which we call it as a man, but it has got one small stroke sticking out to the right side as if it's stretching one arm to the side, like this. Strange, isn't it? Then you know what B at the bottom looks like, the bucket. So there you go. This is how we write Bob. So if your name is Bob, this is how you write your name. So putting them together, bibimbap, 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 okay? On the top, you can see how we write bibimbap in English, and beneath it, you can see how we write bibimbap in Korean. This is how Korean alphabets are patched up together to make a word and sound. Now, at this stage, let me tell you something about writing proportion. Koreans don't really like wasting empty space in the square box, but you see a lot of empty space in these 3 syllables. They're fine as they are, but in order to make them look more neatly arranged inside each square syllable boxes, Koreans don't mind boldly stretching or even shrinking individual consonants and vowels in order to have better overall proportion and harmony of alphabets within the square box. Like this. Okay, you can see with this bucket stretched in different sizes just to fit into the whole square. You can see the square consonant stretched sideways, so it's like more like a rectangle shape, and so on. Okay, by the way, the bibim means mixed, and bap means rice or meal in Korean. And bibimbap actually has a rice at the bottom and different colors of fresh or cooked vegetables on top, then egg and a bit of Korean chili paste, which is a bit sweet, and drizzle of sesame oil, and you mix them together and it's a nice healthy dish. And because of all this mixing, we simply call it bibimbap. And there you go, you've just learned 2 new words in Korean, as well as actually 3 new words in Korean, as well as 2 consonants and 2 vowels. Congratulations! So key takeaways here are number 1, we don't put alphabets in linear way like English or many other languages. We put them in a nice square box according to syllables. 2, we always put consonants and vowels on the top or top 2 rows, then if it exists, ending consonants at the very bottom. So always follow the order of CV or CVC. This is to say vowel cannot come first, like the way you spell orange in English, or consonant cannot exist on its own either. Okay?